is NTV.
Well, good evening to you and welcome to our talk show here on NTV Uganda. It is the 2nd of November 2024 and we are so delighted to be in your company. I am Priscilla Regina Naluoga and this evening's talk show is brought to you by Village Uganda. And of course, just to give you a brief background of what Village Enterprise is, now Village Enterprise's mission is to end extreme poverty in rural Africa, and this is through entrepreneurship, innovation, as well as collective action. They do work with vulnerable women, they do work with refugees, they also work with young people who are most impacted by climate change, by conflict, as well as displacement, and equip them with skills and resources to launch climate-smart businesses. They build savings and also put themselves with their families into a sustainable path out of the extreme poverty that we all know, especially given the statistics that came through the UBO Census 2024 report. Now, Village Enterprise has also started over 100,000 enterprises or small businesses. They have trained over 321,000 first-time entrepreneurs. And of course, this has led to positive transformation of lives of over 2 million people, not just in Uganda, but in Kenya. They have worked in Rwanda, in Ethiopia. They have done some work with the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as Mozambique and Tanzania. And I know that they are still stretching their mile to ensure that each one of us in Uganda, but East Africa and also Africa, we can leapfrog ourselves out of the extreme poverty and be able to have a better economic stance as a people. Now, as we get into this discussion, of course, you, our audience, you're most welcome to it, and we hope that at the end of the day, we get to introduce you to a new approach that can help you graduate out of that extreme poverty that you could be facing. We also want to have this dialogue, talk to the policymakers in how they can actually come up with policies, guidelines and regulations that do enable us to kick out extreme poverty here in Uganda. But by and large, to also our donors, I know that there is importance in funding, and so we hope that this discussion is going to highlight the need for funding so that more support is being given to entrepreneurs across different countries, in particular Uganda. And of course, all stakeholders, we are hoping that collective effort will lead us to collective action to have extreme poverty out of Uganda. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you my panel this evening. I'm so pleased to meet them. A little story about Village Enterprise. About a month ago, I was scrolling through Instagram and I landed on their work, and I was very mesmerized by the work that they were doing, so much so that I did a recording. Hoping one day I will meet them and visit their offices and later on get to see the work that they do on ground. Well, they've done work from the north of Uganda, east of Uganda, west of Uganda, and central Uganda. And this evening, allow me to introduce to you the country director, Uganda Village Enterprise. This is John Lima. He'll be introducing himself in a short while. We are also joined by Winnie Auma, Chief Programs Officer with Village Enterprise. We do have a beneficiary, Helen Amongin, who's also a beneficiary, a former Village Enterprise entrepreneur, and she's going to be speaking from the horse's mouth, ground, the realities and how she was able to leapfrog herself out of extreme poverty and tell her testimony today. We also do have a policy maker representing the government from Omolo district, and this is the district chairperson, Douglas Peter Okello, joining us for this dialogue. Now, I'm going to allow them their salutations. They say ladies first. So I will start from the extreme left with the lady. Winnie, good evening.
Good evening, Priscilla, and good evening, viewers. So excited to be here today, and this is such an important conversation, not just for our nation, but also for our people and the world at large.
All right.
So thank you.
All right. You're most welcome, our country director.
Thank you, Priscilla. It's really a pleasure to be here. And so I'm really excited and looking forward to sharing about our work, and how we deliver this impactful model.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Helen?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Priscilla and viewers out there. I am so delighted to be part of this show and to give a testimony about Village Enterprise Uganda. Thank you.
All right. Our leader.
Yes, good evening, Priscilla.
Good evening.
Good evening, our viewers out there. By name, I am Okelo Douglas Peter, the District Chairperson for Moro District Local Government. And I'm here on behalf of the local government and government to talk about the partnership that we have enjoyed with the Village Enterprise Uganda and the world over. Thank you very much.
All right, this program is brought to you by Village Enterprise. Our topical discussion this evening is paving the path to poverty alleviation here in Uganda. Of course, the hashtag is Village Enterprise across all our social media platforms, and their social media platforms on X at @village_end, on Facebook, Village Enterprise. You have Instagram, Village Enterprise, and of course, you can also find them and this discussion on LinkedIn at Village Enterprise. Now, we want to start by understanding one of the models that has been very instrumental in changing the lives of over 2 million people, and this is the poverty graduation model. I'll start with Winnie, who is a project officer. You are the one that is boots on ground and have been doing this work for such a long time. Talk to us about this Village Enterprise changing lives of Ugandans and Africans in regards to this graduation model. How does it work in the first place?
Very important question. We've been on this journey in this continent for the last 30 years. And as you have rightfully said, we've worked with over 2 million people now that we have reached, who are youth, refugees, and women. And our approach has evolved over the last, 30 years. And it was a completely different program when we first worked with Helen Amongin, and we've refined that approach over the years. Now, poverty graduation is part of economic inclusion programs. And economic inclusion programs and poverty graduation programs, really our focus is on individuals that are living below $2.15 a day. Mm-hmm. We work through a community approach. We go into a particular community, find opinion leaders. We work with them to map resources, opportunities, markets, and actors within that particular region. And then we rigorously use tools at a household level to figure out, is this household living below $2.15 a day? And once we have those households, we work through a self-selection process to get the households that will participate in the program. Once they have come together, we bring them into groups of 3. They self-select themselves into groups of 3, and those groups of 3 then translate into groups of 10 that we call the business savings groups, very similar to the VSLA approach. The only difference here is that they are actually running businesses. And that business savings group platform becomes a space where we train them, where we provide mentorships, where we provide ongoing support for them to...
And all this while you're still dealing household. So when you say household, first break that out for us. Is it mother, father, children, or is it one member of the household? What does household mean in this case?
So the approach really works at a household level. So at different points in the program, the entire household gets to participate. Okay. But there's one consistent individual that gets to represent the household. Okay. And that's the decision that the household makes. And when we are assessing impact, we're looking at impact at the entire household level. We're not just looking at impact for the individual that is participating in the program. And so going back to the savings groups, these households get to participate in the training. So if the household decides that it's a woman that participates in the program, those trainings are open to men. They're open to kids within that household to come and attend those trainings, because it's important for this knowledge to be passed to the younger generations if we're going to break that cycle of extreme poverty. And then we do provide a very small startup capital, which is equivalent to $200. And that has evolved over the years. Helen will tell you, we went from giving 50,000 Uganda shillings to giving $200, and we co-share that. So every group of 3 individuals gets to decide what their business is. And they do that based on the market information that we provide, but they also go back into their communities and assess where are the gaps, what are the needs of our communities, what are the opportunities that are emerging, and we really help them to think about year-long plans. What will you do during the rainy season? What will you do during the dry season? What will you do during the peak seasons like Christmas when everybody is in the celebration mode? What resources and services are needed at that point? And these groups and individuals at their household level then figure out what businesses will thrive throughout those seasons. And sometimes what they do, they even diversify, expand, or add value depending on the seasons that they're experiencing. And there's continuous support throughout the year where they receive mentoring and coaching. And Helen will tell you, we've also done longitudinal studies where we have followed these individuals for 5 years consistently. Some individuals benefit, like Helen, where we followed their story for over 20 years. And consistently what we've seen is that when we work with the individuals that are living below $2.15, we see increases in consumption. We see increases in savings. We see increases in incomes. We see women taking more leadership roles within the savings groups, but also within their communities. And we start to hear the stories of change from their husbands and different individuals.
So let's hear the story right from the source that we have for us this evening. Helen, she has said $2.15.
Yes.
This is literally below 8,000 Ugandan shillings for us in Uganda. Who was earning that money in your household at that time before Village Enterprise came in?
Thank you.
And how were you spending that little?
Thank you, Priscilla. Priscilla, I came to know Village Enterprise Uganda in 1989. By that time, the approach was different. They went to household, identified our family as one of the family which was disadvantaged. Priscilla, in our own family, we are about 16 children born by the same parents. Out of 16, our parents could not be able to educate us because they were parents who were producing, but they were drunkards. So when Village Enterprise visited our community, they were able to be identified as a family, as a household. So out of that, the family decided to choose me to represent them.
Were you the oldest?
No, I am not.
Okay.
But because I had some skills in tailoring, so by the time Village Enterprise came to us, I was trained.
At that time, how much education had you attained?
Up to O level.
Up to O level.
Yes. Okay. So I was trained on business skills, savings, culture, and the most important thing that helped me up to today was helping others. Priscilla, if this last one was not there, then I wouldn't have changed the life of our family. But because this Enterprise Uganda kept on training, encouraging me until after that training, Village Enterprise, by then I used to make clothes under the veranda, just repairing. But when Village Enterprise came in, they were able to give me 50,000 shillings. By then that money was much, of which I would use that money for buying materials, kitenges. So that money earned, I was able to get profits from the kitenge, then from my skill. So it kept on growing. After 1 year, Village Enterprise again came back to Katakwi. And when they found that I had progressed and the family had changed a little bit.
So talk to us about the changes that had happened to your family, right from your parents to your siblings in that 1 year.
In that 1 year, by then I'd also stopped going to school, but I was able to support our family medically. Secondly, I started paying my other siblings' school fees. So at least I could contribute, much as it was not as much as I could, but at least I did it. Then secondly, in 1 year I was able to train more 3 girls to help me to run the business. That's now going back to the community. So I trained them after when Village Enterprise came to Katakwi and found I had already established, I had a team of, we were now 4. And we had changed from being under the veranda, we rented a room. So I had now a workshop. Then Village Enterprise added me more 100,000. So because I was trained how to save and bookkeeping, I was able to put in that 100,000 to buy more materials. After I bought more materials, the business kept on growing. Then I decided after the 3rd year to go back to school, to continue with the studies. And actually I went and studied still fashion and design. I went to school for 2 years, but still the business continued because I had already trained.
The 3 ladies that were working with you.
Yes, so while at school, I was able still to support my other siblings
so
and my family.
So people can be entrepreneurs while they're in school.
Yes. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So in 2003, I completed studying in Iganga Technical Institute. Then I went back to Soroti. This time I did not go back to Katakwi because at least the business was running. Then I was also looking for opportunity to broaden my business. So when I settled in Soroti, I realized that if I had transferred my business to Soroti, I would earn more. And indeed, that is what happened. I had to transfer my business to Soroti with all the team. And we started a workshop. So while in that workshop, in 2005, Village Enterprise again followed me. They went to Katakwi, they did not find me there. You see how Village Enterprise does its things. They don't leave you. When they went there, they did not find, they came to Soroti and found me when I was already established with a workshop. It was not as that big because I had other responsibilities to take care of the family, take care of other siblings. And you know, my brothers produced a lot of children. So, but there was no any other person who was able to help them. So when they came to Soroti in 2005, they were able to add me to top up money. They gave me 500,000. So you see that those are now 3 installments. So I used that money. Still, I stocked the shop. After a period of 6 months, I was able to buy industrial machines, 2 of them. Each machine costed me 1,500,000.
After 2 months?
Yes.
Wow.
So I was able to do that, and the business expanded. But now because Village Enterprise had trained me not only to defend or to support our family, but to support others equally. So I decided to open a skills training center in Soroti. In this skills training center, my objective was to train, to skill single mothers and school dropouts, and I succeeded in doing that. My aim was not to earn profits out of it, but to help others, so that maybe some other Helens would come out of the few that I trained. And indeed, Priscilla, I succeeded. I trained very many girls in Soroti. I actually opened it because I rented a house, like my personal house, a whole house like this. But I picked girls from different parts of Teso. You come with, even if you're breastfeeding, come with food. The only thing that I could do to you is to give you a skill. There I did not need to pay a teacher. I trained them myself.
Were you charging them for this training, or you were passing it on free?
No, I was passing out, because now they used to come with their food, but there was a charge of 50,000 for the training, maybe for other things.
And how long was the training?
When I started, it was 1 year, but I changed it to 6 months. Yes, so I trained very many of them, and there are so many testimonies in Soroti. Most of them settled in Soroti City, and they are running their own businesses. They have their own workshops. Some of them are even better than me. So after that time, I decided to expand my business. I opened a restaurant because now I had the money. So when I opened a restaurant, I started doing outside catering in Soroti City. And because of the training that I went through with Village Enterprise, that encouraged me and made me confident. So I was able to do this for some few years. Then I started doing outside catering. People could hire me to cook food for the burials, parties, weddings. Then after that, I thought of still expanding my business wider. Then I started the events management business. And that was like, wow, it really helped me One, it exposed me to very many people. But now, because I had money, I was able to, in 2013, I was able to change the life of my parents by constructing them a permanent house, a 3-bedroom house. And indeed, I was able to do that. Meanwhile, I was educating my own siblings. I was able to construct a house for them. I could not do it for myself first, but because of what Village Enterprise did to me and encouraged me to do, I had to start with my parents and others. So after that time when I constructed for them a house, to be sincere right now, if you see my parents, the parents that were neglected when they go for parties, these days when my parents go for functions, for parties, they are recognized. They are able to sit them on a high table. It's not like those days when they used to be drunkards. There was nothing completely to be seen in the family, but things have changed.
So 2024, where is your textile industry today and your multi-million events management company? How are they doing?
Yes, right now, from that year, my textile industry, still the school, I changed it now to a skills training center.
Wow.
There is textile making, but there is also a training center. By then, I used to train maybe 20 people, but right now, the first time, like for 6 months, I can train 70, because then I have expanded it. I am not dealing alone with tailoring, but I have decided to incorporate other skills trainings that can help somebody to earn a living. I have added hairdressing, that is doing very well. Then shoemaking, just craft shoemaking. The reason why I decided to pick this is a very simple business that you can do without capital, so long as you have a skill. With the hairdressing, anybody can give you a call that come and do for me this, and you're able to earn a living. With the craft shoes, you can sit under the veranda and make your craft shoes. A capital maybe you'll need of 10,000, and you're able to make a shoe to sell to earn a living.
Wow.
So Priscilla, before I go off, now because I had money, in 2021, I decided to contest as a councillor representing people from Soroti City East A. When I contested, because of what I was already doing to the communities, it was not hard for me to win election, because people knew what I was doing to the communities. So I won election, and I became a councillor representing people from Soroti City East A. Then I was also appointed to be a minister. So Priscilla, as I'm speaking right now, you're speaking to a minister of Soroti City Council, Secretary for Finance, Planning, Administration, and Investment in Soroti City Council. Then I am paid salary. From that small beginning, right now, Priscilla, I am paid salary. Not only that, I am able to educate my own children. One of my girls that I educated, she's a nursery teacher. So already, at least we are able to get to people who are studied in our family. Then one is doing her own business. Then my other last daughter did pharmacy. I made sure that I took her, because I had money to basic schools in this country. For O levels, she was in Our Lady of Africa. Then she joined Chitende, and I was able to pay. Then now she got 16 points, but still there now government helped me, State House helped me to pay her school fees, her tuition. But I was able to fund hostel and feeding fee. Right now she's graduating in January. She's doing her internship in Mulago Hospital Heart Institute, and she's called Amron Gloria Nicole. So it has brought pride. It has really changed our family, because at least we are able to have a graduate now in our own family. From the small beginning of village of 50,000 that Village Enterprise gave me.
The Baganda have a saying, Kamukagwe Muganda, meaning you start with one and build that one, you'll be able to multiply it. And this is the multiplication effect that we are saying. Now I understand when Winnie says household, because one support to Winnie has, to Helen, sorry, has been able to change her family, change her community, and then move her to another community and then change, you know, up to district and leadership levels. So this is a good story to tell. Country Director, in all of this, yes, she's one of the many stories and successes that can be told of village enterprise. But away from the individual impact, talk to us about the, you know, the community impact and the national impact that we have seen with the work that has been done with village enterprise.
Okay, thank you, Priscilla. And maybe for the benefit of our viewers who might be hearing about this poverty graduation approach, I'll talk a little bit about what it is. So generally, poverty graduation programs are basically a sequence set of interventions that address multiple constraints that people who live in extreme poverty face. And so different organizations, you know, utilize different sets of interventions. But for village enterprise, ours really a very simple set of interventions, and they are informed by our thinking about how we could easily get our people out of extreme poverty. And so for us, we think entrepreneurship is the simplest way somebody can be able to have money in their hands, because when they have money, then they can do anything. And so the question then becomes, how do you facilitate someone living in extreme poverty to become a successful entrepreneur? And that's what defines the interventions of our model. So number one, we think it's important for them to have some basic skills on how to identify and run a business. How can they know that this business is going to be successful, that it's profitable? And so that informs the first intervention that Helen was talking about. The trainings that are centered around enterprise development, you know, financial literacy, and of course group dynamics, because ours is a group-based model. But we also think that it's not just sufficient to provide the skills and the knowledge. Without capital, then that knowledge is useless. And so that's why we have also bundled the second component, which is the cash grants, for the purpose of, you know, incubating businesses. We further believe that it's not sufficient, because most of them, as Winnie put it, most of them are doing this for the first time in their lives. Like for Helen, at least, she was doing something, but most of the people that we work with across the country, they're doing this for the first time. And so we feel that it's not sufficient to provide them with the knowledge and the skills and the seed capital. It's also important to provide them ongoing support for a period of time, until we are sure that now they know what to do, they can take off on their own. And that informs the third component of our interventions, which we call coaching and mentoring.
Okay.
And then further to that, so we think that once they're successful in running their businesses and they're making the money, it's also important for them to appreciate the culture of, you know, saving and investment, because that's where true transformation comes from. And so we facilitate them to form what we call the business service group that Winnie earlier on mentioned. Because through those savings groups, they're able to pull resources together, they're able to borrow to themselves for the purpose of not only building and growing the businesses, but also meeting the day-to-day, you know, household needs. And so I would say that is our core business as Village Enterprise. The only thing that we do, so to say. So, but what we've done over the years is to work with different partners to adapt that model to meet the unique needs of the different populations and contexts. For example, we tailored our model to support the frontline communities living around the Kibale National Park and the Murchison Falls National Park. The idea is really to provide, you know, sustainable income generating options for those households, with the aim to reduce their reliance on activities that actually are detrimental to those protected ecosystems. And so that's how we're trying to support conservation efforts through our model. Most recently, we also adapted it specifically to meet the needs of refugees and, of course, host communities in West Nile, where we integrated onto our poverty graduation model the market systems development approach, which we're implementing together with the Massicos, who are our partners on this project. with the aim to build the resilience and self-sufficiency of refugees and, of course, the vulnerable host communities. And so in terms of our impact to date, through those different adaptations and our core programming, so we've been able to reach to support over 142,000 entrepreneurs countrywide, supporting them to launch over 40,000 businesses, and facilitating the formation of close to 3,000 savings groups that Winnie mentioned about. And then we actually mentioned it in terms of the impact. So we have 3 different ways we track the impact of our program. So we have quite a robust internal measurement system where our monitoring and evaluation department, routinely, collects data and synthesizes it and shares with us. And our internal data shows really very meaningful increases in consumption and expenditure, in household savings, in business value. I should also like to mention that majority of our entrepreneurs or participants are actually women, over 80%. And what our internal data shows is that there's this increased sense of empowerment and agency, and well-being. So those are some of the overall impacts that we are seeing across the board as a country. And also externally, we have commissioned in the past a couple of impact studies, independent impact studies through the randomized control trials, which actually tested the cost effectiveness of our model. And the most recent finding really was really very exciting, which showed that for every $1 invested in our program, there is a 5.4 return on investment in terms of household incomes over time. And so that really gives us the motivation and assurance that we are doing the right thing. And so, and we have followed up with some of the groups that we worked with about 5 years ago, and the results have shown that these outcomes even become better over time. For example, in terms of savings, we saw 933% increase in household savings. That's after a period of 5 years from the time we worked with them. We are seeing about 83% increase in consumption and expenditure. And we're seeing more diversification of income generating activities. Others are adding value. So it's really very exciting, just to give you a sneak peek of what the impact looks like.
All right, it is very exciting, and I know that one of the entities that you're working with, Winnie, I'll come to you in just a minute. One of the strong entities that you have to work with is government and local government. The district chairperson, Omoro District, is here, and I know that he also has his own first-hand experience with village enterprise and the impact that it has had on the people in your area code, in your communities. Talk to us about your experience working with village enterprise and the impact that you have observed ever since this partnership began with the district and village enterprise.
Well, thank you very much, Priscilla, the panelists here, and the viewers. I want to start from a point of testimony. I came to know about village enterprise from Noya district in Acholi sub-region in northern Uganda. The district chairperson of Noya then invited me to join him for the open of the saving groups account in Noya district. So when I reached there, I took a lot of interest to know and understand more about village enterprise, because at that time I've heard about village enterprise, but I didn't know what they do exactly. So when I listened to the testimony from the beneficiaries and the groups, then at that point I prayed. I said, as chairman of the district God, listen to me so that this organization, in their journey of poverty alleviation and poverty eradication, comes to Omoro district. Because Omoro district borders Noya district. And I want to say that God listened to me and to the leaders of Omoro district and the people of Omoro. So village enterprise came to work in Omoro district. And at that time when they came, as a requirement by government, I want to let the viewers know that Village Enterprise has an operational MOU with the local governments. Not only the local government of Omoro, but all the local governments in the areas they're working in. Number two, and that means they automatically become a partner within the district, supporting interventions of government. Number two, in the work that Village Enterprise is doing, they integrate their work plan, their budget, into the district development plan. Again, this is critical because by integrating into the district development plan, it makes us as local government and as government know whether their support is an on-budget support or is an off-budget support. And as you have asked me, I want to testify here again that working with Village Enterprise made us to diagnose the community's problem, the problem in the community because of their approach, where they reach out to the population, understand them very well. So to us as local government, this approach is a step in the right direction. Because Priscilla and the viewers outside there, you agree with me that northern Uganda and Acholi sub-region is at a transitional period. We have had 2 decades of war. So we are at the point of return, rehabilitation, recovery, reintegration. And therefore, the most important thing is to demystify the mindset of our people about dependency syndrome. And I want to say here that as local government and Village Enterprise, the aspect of mindset change and attitude development has been inculcated in our people to the extent that now they do not want to depend on anybody but rather to work, unlike in the past where there was that element of dependency syndrome. Because in the first community engagement approach that Village Enterprise uses is training on mindset change and attitude development, which is critical. And of course, when you look at the 7 pillars of PDM, the first pillar of PDM is also centered on mindset change and attitude development. And therefore, to link this, it means that what Village Enterprise is doing is supporting the local government, but also the national government, in line with the PDM pillar. Number 2 is the training. On top of what Village Enterprise is doing to support us is on functional adult literacy. When you go to these groups, you find women who do not even know how to write. Now they know how to read and write, which is a plus. The women who had not lost hope and who just spend their money recklessly are being trained on financial discipline, financial literacy, but most importantly, the saving culture. And I want to say here, Priscilla and the viewers outside there, that the biggest problem we are grappling with in Acholi sub-region, northern Uganda, but also Uganda as a whole, is the saving culture. People get a lot of money, but how they spend?
Saving for economic growth culture.
That is a challenge. I have been studying the spending trend. Today is Thursday, today is Saturday.
Second.
Now, as we get to this, as Saturday, you go to places and you see how people spend their money. So this approach has helped us as a local government and the district. The third I want to emphasize here is the aspect of hygiene and sanitation. Because for us to have a productive population, aspect of household hygiene and sanitation is key. But also the aspect of health is very critical. Again, this aligns with the mission and the vision of government and local government. Because local government now and government is moving towards preventive rather than curative, so that we reduce on the number of people who come to access health services at the health facility.
All right.
So in the training that is done with the community members, they emphasize so much on hygiene and sanitation at household level. And to me, this is very key. And most importantly, is on the environmental governance. Priscilla and the viewers outside there, you'll agree with me that at the peak of war, even after now, the destruction on the forest cover is very high in our area. But Village Enterprise, again, uses an approach which is integrated, that apart from training on poverty eradication, they also integrate environmental governance, that each of the households should equally plant some trees. Whether it is a fruit trees, please, you plant, so that we protect our environmental cover and the environment is conducive. So as local government, we look at this as a diagnosis of the community problems geared towards socio-economic transformation, poverty eradication, and development.
All right. Well, thank you so much, District Leader, for your testimony. You're truly a walking ambassador. You know, when our leaders are transformed, then we trust that our communities are going to be transformed. Now, Village Enterprise has worked with different districts across Uganda. They've been in Agago, Albertong, Amuria. You do have Kamwenge in Western Uganda, Kaperebyong. You do have Katakwi, where our dear Helen originates from. You do have Chenjojo, you do have Madi, Okolo, Terego, and Yumbe. And of course, they have also previously operated in Dokolo, Hoima, Kiriandongo, and Noya districts. So these are all elements of testimony. Coming back to you, John, what you are doing is pretty much skills development, which is in alignment with Uganda's priorities, especially in Uganda's Vision 2040. Skills development, you do have poverty eradication, rural transformation, and economic resilience. How are you continuously aligning yourself to be able to do the work that you do in alignment with where the government of Uganda is actually seeing itself helping Ugandans to alleviate poverty?
Thank you, Priscilla. So that's why we leverage partnerships. And right now, we want to take this from the local level to the national level. And so we feel like collective action is really very critical here. And that's what really underpins our strategy going forward. How do we scale this impact? We can't do it as alone as Village Enterprise. And so we continuously seek for partnerships with local organizations, international partners, but more specifically right now we're very intentional about partnering with the national government to see how we could work together, maybe to integrate this kind of approach within our social protection systems. And so that's where we're heading going into the future. So I think Winnie maybe did not mention that, but right now we're also shifting away from direct implementation to building the capacity of our other partners to replicate this approach. And so we've already started doing work in that dimension in quite a number of countries. And this is what we intend to do potentially with the national governments. We're already doing it with the government of Rwanda. We have done some work with the government of Kenya. And now we're actively seeking for partnership with the government of Uganda to see how this could be integrated within the development programs. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the approach really focuses on identifying individuals and households that are experiencing extreme vulnerability, and then equipping them, with the skills, and the resources to enable them to develop sustainable livelihoods. And I think that directly aligns with the government's goal around building a skilled and economically viable workforce. the savings groups, for example, is one of the ways we are trying to nurture, financial stability of these enterprises. And so I think that still aligns, with the national development goals. So right now we're also very intentional about facilitating market connections. Yeah. How do we support these micro enterprises move to the next level? And now we realize the role that the private sector plays in that regard. So it is something that we're already piloting with the DREAMS project that I mentioned earlier. DREAMS basically standing for delivering resilient enterprises and market systems for the refugees. Mm-hmm. So that's how we have started, testing, layering of these other approaches, these other interventions to make sure that the impact is holistic. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Winnie, speaking of holistic impact, he's talked about the partnerships, mm-hmm. and I know that you do have on-ground partnerships with government, NGOs, and communities directly. Mm-hmm. So give us some of those examples of the working partnerships currently existing.
Thank you, Priscilla. We have both regional partnerships. So John has talked about our work with Mercy Corps Uganda, but we are also working with Mercy Corps globally. So the project that he just talked about, DREAMS, that is happening in West Nile, that is an approach that we have now taken across 4 different countries. Mm-hmm. So in Uganda, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, and working with refugees. And in Tanzania, we're actually working with naturalized refugees. But we're really layering the approach on top of our graduation. And I think it goes to speak to the broader sector. We know we have refined our approach for 30 years to focus on poverty graduation, but we are not the experts when it comes to market linkages. And so just recognizing that the needs of the communities and the context that we work in are complex and require, close collaboration with different partners. And so market systems and working with private sector actors becomes critical on that. So we work with Mercy Corps, but we've also worked with groups like Manji Commodities, Achila, to directly provide access to inputs, but also the back-end market. Around Kiriadongo, we promoted chili growing because it does support, mitigate human-wildlife conflict, because the elephant really don't consume the chilies. And so to really make sure that the communities in the region are growing things that are profitable and viable and do not exacerbate the human-wildlife conflict, we had to focus on chilies. And in that, we partnered with Uganda Wildlife Authority. We partnered with Uganda Wildlife Conservation Society here in Uganda, but also in the DRC. Okay. Down in Kamwenge and Chenjojo, we're partnering with a small organization called Igongo Chimpanzees. Their work focuses on tracking poachers and individuals that are going into the park to do all these illegal activities. And so they are focused on the illegal side of the work and tracking and making sure destruction is not happening. We are focused on the livelihoods, and our work complements each other. And then we're also really looking to continue to do this and drive cost effectiveness by finding local partners to deliver this approach. As an organization, we don't believe that it's cost effective or even it is the most sufficient and effective way to use any dollars by going to every region and setting an office and setting an operation. So in some places we've had to go to a country, find local partners who already have boots on the ground, they have structures, and then we build their capacity to deliver the model. And I think that way the dollars can go far, our shillings can go far, without us creating a lot of structural, barriers on the way that take the money away from the community. As much as possible, we want these resources to go far to the communities. All right. So our partnerships range from governments to INGOs to local partners to private sector actors, and they span across this country depending on the project, on the context that we are working in.
Helen, briefly, as an ambassador of Village Enterprise and a minister in your community, could you talk to us about we're in 2024, and you're now on, a community leadership level. You're heading probably for national level. I don't know about that. But what plans do you have in your capacity and the capacity that has been built in you to actually expand your influence?
Thank you, Priscilla, and viewers outside there. There is one thing that I want to mention before I continue responding to your question. My business of events management and the skills training center is employing not less than 20 people right now. Then that is now giving back to the community, and these people that I'm employing are able to support their own families, because at least I pay them when I have an activity, and there are those ones whom I pay monthly salary. Then on my personal basis, I am able to construct a home in Soroti City. I bought land and I constructed a home which is not less than 500 million now. So, but Priscilla, my future plans in Soroti and Teso as a whole is to buy land. What had taken much of my attention was to put up a home. But I am planning to buy land and construct a skills training or a vocational institute that it can help the whole sub-region. Because I have seen the impact of skilling. Priscilla, you cannot be able to keep on giving somebody money, but if you give somebody something to use for fishing, and that is my priority, to support others to learn how to fish. That's why I give them skills. That's what I have to give them. Then that is on the skills training center. But on my events management, I am planning to go to China and buy things. You know, this business is now catching the market.
It is the booming business.
In everything, burials, people still use events managers. And in most cases, in Teso sub-region, when we need something like seat chair covers, chairs, and those other things, we have to hire from Kampala. So I am thinking of buying the things and opening a shop in Soroti, whereby other service provider from the sub-region will be able to hire from me. And that will bring services nearer to the community. That is what I am planning to do. Secondly, Priscilla, you've mentioned it rightly. If I was prepared enough, I would have contested for a woman member of parliament for Soroti City. But I have decided to push it. In 2031, Priscilla, I will be able to contest. But with the impact that I am giving back to the communities, people actually are pushing me to do that, because they are seeing, Priscilla, this skills training school that I have opened, for that course, for you to get trained, you only pay 120,000 for 6 months. But I have decided upon me to pay rent. So the money that they see single mothers and school dropouts and the guardians are contributing is basically to pay the teachers. But the other part, I am doing it myself because I am able.
All right.
Thank you.
Well done, Helen. Now, this leaves our representative of local government and government in a hard spot, because you have to create a continuous environment that allows Helen, achieve all those things that she has to achieve. You also have to allow Village Enterprise to make sure that it continues its work with a comfortable environment. And therefore it begs the question, the role of government presently in ensuring that there's sustainability to the economic empowerment that is being, shared by our brothers and sisters from Village Enterprise.
Priscilla and viewers outside there, as government, and most importantly, local government, one of our key mandates, which is provided for in the Local Government Act and the Constitution, but also working with partners, is what I term as policy formulation and legislation. And as a Moro District Local Government, in line with what Village Enterprise is doing to support our people, we have developed what I termed as a local inclusion agenda. The local inclusion agenda means we are focusing on persons with disability, which to me, again, I define it differently. I say people with different abilities, because they can do a lot to support the community. So, as a district, under this policy formulation, we have adopted the poverty gradation model of village enterprise to enhance agricultural production for two things. Number one, for household food security, but also number two, for commercial purposes. You've heard from the country director of village enterprise that the entrepreneurship training has made us as a Moro district local government to also strengthen our market systems by building the market infrastructures in place to support business. Number two, under the poverty gradation model, we are using linkage to the financial institution so that these individual persons are able to access financial services. That is in line with the policy formulation and legislation, and we linked it with what village enterprise is doing, the poverty gradation model. Number two, Priscilla, what government is doing is what I term as the gender responsive planning, budgeting, and resource allocation. You are very much aware now as local government, Equal Opportunities Commission requires us to do gender responsive planning and budgeting, and they give us a certificate of compliance. And for us to do that effectively and in compliance with what Equal Opportunity Commission requirement needs as a district, we are doing an inclusive planning, budgeting, and resource allocation for purposes of economic empowerment, but also livelihood support. Number two, as I said before, we are strengthening the market systems within the district. And number three, we want to enhance household livelihood as a strategy. But most importantly, Priscilla and the viewers outside there, with the interventions of village enterprise and the poverty eradication model, which is not in many districts. In Moro district, we have what I call the role model men, role model women, and role model families. Now, how do you qualify to be a role model man, a role model woman, or role model families? Is what Helen talked about. You should be able to send all your children to school, both the girl child and the boy child. You should be able to ensure that you provide medical support. You should be able to ensure that amidst all problems in the family, you handle them amicably. That helps in reducing gender-based violence at household level. So these are part of the policy issues that we are working on as local. But most importantly, Priscilla, before I leave, is that this intervention, as local government, we are happy because most of the beneficiaries that village enterprise are supporting, we have also integrated them into the existing government programs. And I want to mention this, the PDM. The Paris Development Model.
That one we all do, and we trust to see it, and that, you know, the coexistence of the two programs. Now, as we come to the conclusion of this, I would like to have our representatives, you know, from Village Enterprise to give us the conclusive remarks in under a minute. I'll start with you, Winnie, to the stakeholders and, you know, partners out there, with your message, and then we'll end with the country director, John, to let us know how people can then be a part of the work that you're doing. Starting with you, Winnie.
Thank you, Priscilla, and thank you, viewers. My message to stakeholders that span across different sectors is that partnerships and collective action are at the heart of sustainable development. And now more than ever, we need to be pulling together rather than pulling apart in order to be able to address the holistic needs of the communities that we have. And that's going to require each one of us bringing our expertise, each one of us bringing our resources, the government creating enabling environment and the policies, private sector actors coming in, creating the systems to allow pathways for markets, communities taking ownership of their future, and collaboratively coming to define what that future looks like. Okay. Thank you.
All right. John?
Yeah, thank you, Priscilla. So we have a lot of resources that we can share for viewers who would like to learn more about our work. We have quite a rich website, which really, contains a lot of information of what we do, not only in Uganda, but across countries where we work. We also we have an upcoming stakeholder conference, which is scheduled for 20th of November here in Kampala at Latitude Zero Hotel in Makindye. So I should like to extend an invitation to everyone who is interested, because that half-day conference is really aimed at bringing the key stakeholders in the same room to discuss critical issues, to share about our work that we are doing and the impact, and especially fostering meaningful collaborations going forward. Okay. And so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, John, Winnie, Helen, and Mr. Kello. Thank you so much for your contributions to poverty alleviation in Uganda. All is said and done. Of course, you can turn to their social media platforms. Just type in Village Enterprise across their social media platforms on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and Facebook, as well as X, to get to know more about the conference that is upcoming and how you can partake of it. But at the end of the day, through this program, beneficiaries like Helen have been able to experience a significant economic growth, improve their quality of life, and become active participants in their communities and country. And of course, partnering with governments and organizations, Village Enterprise can expand its reach and help millions more in Uganda and East Africa escape poverty, so we can join the force all together. I am Priscilla Regina Nelwaga. Thank you so much for having been a part of this discussion. We trust that it has added value to you, tickled you to do something about where you are, so that next time we have this conversation, you yourself are in a better place. Good evening.